The classroom lights dimmed slightly as the announcement tone echoed overhead. Students of every shape, color, and species gradually turned toward the front of the lecture hall. Mr. Kahiro, an 8-foot-tall alien with sharp, owl-like eyes and antlers stretching wide like gnarled branches, stood with an uncharacteristically serious expression. He rarely addressed the class before diving into the day's lesson. The fact that he was doing so now meant it was something big. "I need everyone's attention," he said, his deep voice rolling through the room. The chatter died instantly. "There's been a development, something that will directly affect this class, and, quite honestly, the entire institution." A low murmur began again, but faded just as quickly when he raised a clawed hand. His lean, deer-like frame shifted slightly as he moved to the center of the room. "I'm sure most of you have heard the rumors," he continued, "about the latest species inducted into the Galactic Council, the humans." The room tensed. Even without a shared language, the students exchanged glances that translated across species lines. "They're real?" Whispers fluttered like insects. "Deathworlders. Monsters, unstoppable." Each student in this advanced xenobiology course hailed from what were considered standard or peaceful worlds, planets with stable climates, balanced ecosystems, and predator-prey relationships that barely qualified as threatening. No one in the room had ever faced danger that couldn't be resolved with an environmental drone or quick shelter dome. That's why the idea of humans, a species allegedly born on a death world, unsettled everyone to their core. A slim, feline-eyed student raised her hand cautiously. "Professor Kahiro, is it true that humans come from a death world?" The professor nodded slowly. "Not just any death world. From what we understand, they are the only sentient species ever discovered to have evolved and thrived on a planet that qualifies under every category of environmental hostility." Another student's hand shot up. "Wait, can we clarify that? What exactly is a death world technically?" Kahiro nodded. "Good question. In the Galactic Survey Index, a death world is classified by one or more of 4 primary danger types: unstable weather or frequent natural disasters, highly aggressive fauna, toxic flora or atmosphere, and extreme or inconsistent climate conditions. Planets that display even one of these traits are rare. Those with 2 are anomalies." He paused for effect. Earth, the human homeworld, ticks every box. Multiple times. A stunned silence filled the room like vacuum-sealed air. The professor took a deep breath. "And now, one of them will be joining this class." You could have heard a pin drop. Even the usually hyperactive winged student from Alcourt 9 sat frozen, wings tucked tight against her back. No one said a word. Even Athelia, one of the few carnivorous students in the room, tensed. She was already isolated by the others simply because of her diet. Her predatory status made her classmates keep a polite, and sometimes terrified, distance. She could only imagine how a human would be received. Or worse, how they would behave. Professor Kahiro cleared his throat. "To give you time to adjust to this news, I'm granting 30 minutes of open period. Use the time however you see fit, but stay in the classroom, no noise, no mischief. I'll answer questions if you have them." He sat down behind his desk, clearly shaken himself. Athelia stood after a few minutes and quietly approached him. "Sure," she said softly. "Do you know anything about them? What they eat? How they act? Are they like us?" Kahiro leaned back in his seat, gazing out across the classroom of worried eyes and twitching tails. "I wish I did," he admitted. "I've never met one before. All I know are rumors and secondhand reports, none of them reliable. Some say they're omnivores. Others say they're impossibly strong, able to lift and throw objects 10 times their body weight, and more claim they've survived wars that wiped out entire continents. Athelia frowned. Omnivores. But no species can evolve that way. It's not ecologically viable. You said so yourself. I know, Kahiro replied, rubbing his temples. I've said many things that apparently don't apply to humans. They both turned their heads as the classroom door clicked open. In stepped the headmaster, his usual serene posture noticeably stiffer. Beside him stood something, alien, yet strangely familiar, humanoid in shape, 2 legs, 2 arms, upright posture, a head of dark brown hair, forward-facing eyes. The girl stood out 6 feet tall. Not towering, but solid, dense. Athelia's eyes immediately noticed the muscles. Not decorative or exaggerated, but real, functional. Compact strength, built for running, climbing, fighting. Even the way she moved was unnatural, balanced, calculated. Like a predator used to stalking danger, not avoiding it. This is your new classmate, the headmaster said. Her name is Diana. She is a human from Earth. Kahiro stepped forward, trying to maintain composure. Welcome, Diana. I'm Mr. Kahiro. Please introduce yourself to the class. Diana nodded politely. Her voice, when she spoke, was smooth, steady, and almost melodic in its calmness. Hi, I'm Diana. I'm 17 Earth years old, female by human standards, and I'm from the planet Earth, Sol system. Some students recoiled just at the mention of her world. Others just stared, as if trying to see past her skin into her biology, her history, trying to solve the riddle of how someone so normal could come from a place so extreme. Are humans carnivores or herbivores? Someone asked finally. Diana smiled, almost amused. We're omnivores. We eat both plants and meat, and we're capable of surviving for years on either diet exclusively. Mr. Kahiro stiffened. Just earlier that day, he had confidently told Athelia that omnivores were theoretical at best. Yet here, one stood. You're telling us your planet supports both flora and fauna in massive enough quantities to support a species evolved for consuming both? A voice asked, incredulous. Yeah, Diana replied, clearly confused. Doesn't yours? Doesn't yours? Professor Kahiro interjected. Death worlds are categorized by the primary environmental factor that makes them dangerous. Earth's, based on what you've said, sounds like it qualifies under predator class. Diana tilted her head. Only one category? No. We have violent predators, yes, but we also have earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, droughts, poisonous plants, unpredictable seasons. We've got all of it, every category. The room went dead silent. You're joking, someone muttered. I wish I were, Diana said with a shrug. Kahiro's mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, you survived all that and became a spacefaring species. Diana blinked. I mean, yeah, isn't that what you're supposed to do? The bell rang, ending the period. No one moved for a few seconds. Kahiro had to shake his head to snap himself back into the present. Assignments are still due by end of day, he said weakly. Tomorrow, we'll start our unit on Earth. As the students gathered their belongings, still stunned, Diana made her way to the door. Excuse me, human, Kahiro said. Could I speak with you? She turned back. Sure, about what? Kahiro looked almost embarrassed. Planning tomorrow's lesson. I don't actually know anything about your world, or your people, or even how you live. Diana smiled, pulled up a chair, and sat across from him. Then I guess we'll have to start from the beginning. The classroom had never been quieter. Even after Diana left with Mr. Kahiro to help plan the next day's lesson, no one quite knew what to say. It was as if her presence had knocked the air out of the room, and no one dared breathe it back in. For Athelia, it wasn't fear that occupied her thoughts. It was fascination. The way Diana walked, spoke, and even breathed, everything about her felt calibrated, purposeful, evolved for struggle. Athelia had grown up as a pyrox, a predator species herself, stronger than most in the class. And yet, when she watched Diana, she didn't feel stronger. She felt challenged. The kind of tension that only came from encountering something as strong or stronger than you. Back in the now empty classroom, Mr. Kahiro sat behind his desk, scrolling through the digital files Diana had given him, Earth's historical records, culture databases, biological data, and even snippets of recorded human media. It was overwhelming. He skimmed through a segment on natural disasters. Tornadoes are violent, spiraling columns of air capable of lifting buildings off the ground. He blinked. He blinked. Another file detailed volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes, not just as isolated events, but as recurring features of Earth's environment. Earthquakes had leveled cities. Tsunamis had wiped out coastlines. And yet, humans stayed, rebuilt, learned, advanced. By the time he reached the chapter on human history wars, genocides, global conflicts, civil uprisings, he had to stop and rub his temples. They had survived all this. No, more than that, they thrived. The thought unsettled him. A knock on the door made him flinch. Diana stepped back into the room with a school-issued tablet under her arm and a half-eaten protein bar in hand. She raised an eyebrow when she saw his expression. "You all right?" she asked. Kahiro looked up slowly, then gestured toward the files. "I've only scratched the surface. Your world is a paradox. No species should have evolved there." "Yeah, we get that a lot," she said, sitting back down across from him. "Guess we just got lucky." He studied her closely. "Lucky," he repeated, as if testing the word for the first time. Diana leaned forward. "We didn't get this far because Earth was easy. We got here because it was hard, because it forced us to adapt or die. Simple as that." Kahiro nodded slowly. "It's becoming clear." She smiled. "So where do you want to start with the lesson plan?" "I think we begin with your biology," he said. "The idea that humans are omnivores. It contradicts everything the Council believed about ecological development." Diana chuckled. "I figured, but it's true. We eat meat and plants. We have canine teeth and molars. And our digestive system handles both. No problem." Kahiro typed notes rapidly. "And this is common across your entire species." "Pretty much. We've got dietary preferences, of course. Vegans, vegetarians, carnivores. But biologically, yeah, everyone's built to eat both. And your strength? One of your classmates noted you appeared unusually dense." "Yeah, gravity thing," she explained. "Earth's gravity is nearly 5 times stronger than it is here. That's why I feel light on my feet. Our muscles and bones had to adapt to hold us up under that kind of pressure." "That explains the sprint," Kahiro muttered. She smirked. "Only gave it about 50%, to be honest." That was enough to make him pause his typing. "You're joking. Wish I were." He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "And there are 30 more of you." "Yup. My whole class got transferred here. Galactic Council didn't want to deal with handpicking individuals, so they just moved us all at once." Kahiro looked like he might pass out. "How convenient." Diana grinned and offered him a second protein bar from her pocket. "Want one?" It's chocolate peanut butter flavor. No, he said quickly, hands raised. I've read about peanuts. Apparently, they trigger toxic responses in 22% of known sentient species. She laughed. Yeah, we know. Allergies are a thing. And yet you still eat them? Well, yeah. We just label stuff and try not to kill each other. The two sat in silence for a moment before Diana spoke again. You said something earlier about how no species could evolve as omnivores. Kahiro nodded. Then I guess we broke the rules, she said. Or maybe the rules were never as fixed as you thought. That, he said, is the most unsettling part. They worked together for the next hour, building out a rough outline of the next lesson. Earth's biosphere, death world classification, human adaptability, and environmental resilience. Every time Diana shared a new fact, Kahiro either widened his eyes or groaned in disbelief. Let me get this straight, he said at one point. Your species domesticated wolves, turned them into lapdogs, yeah? Your kind looked at apex predators and thought, that could be a friend? She just shrugged. We were lonely, I guess. When the school bell chimed for dismissal, Diana rose from her seat and slung her bag over one shoulder. Same time, tomorrow? She asked. I might need several days, Kahiro admitted. Fair, she replied, then headed out. As she made her way through the hallway toward her assigned dorm, Diana took in her surroundings. The architecture was clean, quiet, and oddly sterile. She'd heard some students whisper behind her as she passed, some in awe, others still trying to gauge whether she was dangerous. Probably both. She reached her dorm and pressed her palm to the scanner. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside was, surprisingly, Earth-like. A shared living area with actual furniture, recognizable appliances, and a soft yellow glow from overhead lights that mimicked a warm sunset. The labels were still in English. The air smelled faintly of plastic wrap and cleaning solution. Just as she stepped inside, a computerized voice chimed, "Gravity simulator returning to Earth standard conditions." Her seat grew heavier instantly. She gave a small hop to tested yip. That was home gravity. Finally, then came the sound of a chip bag crinkling. Well, look who finally made it, he said. Heard we're bunking together. Diana smiled. Guess we're lucky. Or cursed, he joked, throwing himself onto the couch. So, how was first day? Intense, she admitted. Kahiro kept me after class to help build tomorrow's lesson. Turns out he knows nothing about humans. Same here, Tyler said. Brody told me his war history teacher fainted when he mentioned nuclear bombs. And Jen got in a yelling match with the lunch lady after finding out no one cooks their food here. Diana laughed, then dropped her bag. You're kidding. Nope. Oh, and apparently Caleb had to leave PE early threw a dodgeball too hard. Split the net. Again, they both burst out laughing. So, we're demons to them, basically, Diana said. Pretty much. Well, she said, stretching her arms, at least the dorm has gravity, food, and apparently, internet. Yep. No clue how they got it across the galaxy, but I'm not asking questions. She slumped onto the other side of the couch and grabbed a bag of chips from the table. I think we're gonna fit in just fine. Or scare everyone half to death. Same difference. The following day, Diana arrived at Mr. Kahiro's office before class, tablet in hand and a fresh cup of coffee steaming in her travel mug. She was already halfway through it when she stepped through the doorway. Mr. Kahiro, who had spent the entire night buried in Earth history files, looked like he hadn't slept at all. "Morning?" she greeted. He looked up from his desk, visibly flustered. "You drink that every morning?" Diana blinked. "Coffee? Yeah. Why?" "Why?" He stared at her mug like it was filled with plutonium. That beverage contains caffeine, a stimulant banned in over 100 systems for its neurological effects. Ingesting even trace amounts could paralyze most known species. She shrugged and took another sip. "Tastes better than it smells." Mr. Kahiro leaned back in his chair and massaged his forehead. "Your people voluntarily consume a substance that would incapacitate most life forms in this galaxy just to wake up, pretty much, or stay awake, or focus, or survive Monday mornings." He let out a noise somewhere between a laugh and a groan. "This is already too much. I haven't even processed the capsaicin yet." She smiled. "Capsaicin. But yeah, that too. Do you realize that substance has been classified as a potential chemical weapon in half the galaxy?" "Yup. We eat it in hot sauce." Mr. Kahiro set his datapad down and exhaled slowly. "Diana, you and your species are like walking paradoxes. You casually ingest poisons, survive hurricanes, and build civilizations on unstable fault lines." She grinned and sipped again. "That's Earth for you." A chime sounded, signaling the start of first period. "Come on," she said. "We've got a lesson to teach." As class began, the students filed in more slowly than usual. Whispers circled the room like a low hum. The previous day's shock hadn't worn off yet, and now curiosity was beginning to override fear. Diana stood at the front of the class beside Mr. Kahiro, who looked visibly more nervous than she did. She tapped her tablet and projected a planetary model of Earth in the air behind her. "Today," Mr. Kahiro began, "we'll begin our unit on the human homeworld. Earth." He looked toward Diana and gestured. "You may start." She nodded and stepped forward. "So, Earth. As some of you now know, it's what's classified as a death world. But I've been told the term means something a little different to you than it does to us." She paused to let that sink in. In your galactic classification system, planets get flagged if they have one major threat to sentient life: predators, weather, poisonous plants, extreme temperatures. Earth checks all four. We don't just have earthquakes, volcanoes, and storms, we expect them. A student toward the back raised a hand timidly. "But how can a sentient species evolve in such hostile conditions? Wouldn't your population be too fragile to reach sapience?" Diana tilted her head. "You'd think, right? But humans didn't evolve in spite of Earth's dangers, we evolved because of them. If our planet had been peaceful, we might never have learned how to build, plan, or protect ourselves. Our brains didn't evolve just to think. They evolved to survive." A student sat back, stunned. Ophelia leaned forward in her seat. "What about the animals on your world? How dangerous are they really?" Diana laughed softly. "Depends. Some can kill you with venom, others with claws, some with sheer weight or speed. But it's not just animals, plants, too. Some are so toxic they can poison you just by touch. Others camouflage so well you wouldn't notice until it's too late." Gasps rippled through the room. One student looked pale. "How do you even live there?" "We adapted," Diana replied. "We built houses, developed medicine, made clothing to protect us. Trial and error mostly, a lot of error." Mr. Kahiro cleared his throat. "Let's move to culture. Diana, could you describe what kind of society humans live in?" Her face turned a little more serious. "Well, that's where it gets messy. Unlike most species in the galaxy, humans didn't unify early. Our history is full of tribalism, nationalism, and internal conflict. We didn't form a global government until we were already spacefaring. A hand shot up. Wait, are you saying your species had wars between itself? Oh yeah, Diana said with a humorless smile. A lot of them. Some over land, some over religion, others over resources. 2 of them were so big we named them world wars. Millions died, and we kept going. The room fell into stunned silence again. Mr. Kahiro tried to pick up the pieces. So, you had infighting during your technological development. All the way through, she confirmed. We built rockets and bombs at the same time. We cured diseases and created new ones in labs. Our progress was never clean. Athelia tilted her head. How are you still alive? Diana chuckled. Honestly. Good question. I think we're just too stubborn to die. The class was clearly overwhelmed. Some students were quietly taking notes, others were just staring at the floor or whispering among themselves. One student up front raised a shaking hand. Did your kind really cause mass extinctions on purpose? Diana hesitated. Some were accidents, overhunting, pollution, loss of habitat. Others, yeah. Humans have done some awful things. But we've also created art, cured diseases, and explored more of our planet and beyond than most species ever do. Athelia leaned forward again. So you're not proud of it? No, Diana said honestly. But we don't run from it either. We remember it. That's how we make sure we don't do it again. Mr. Kahiro watched the room carefully. He could tell this wasn't just a lesson. It was an existential crisis for some of the students. Everything they thought they knew about evolution, civilization, and interstellar life was being rewritten by a 17-year-old girl from a blue and green planet. After class, Diana returned to her dorm exhausted. Not physically, but mentally. She didn't expect it to be so much talking. So many questions, and so many reactions that felt like gut punches. She kicked off her boots and flopped onto the couch, only to see Tyler emerging from the kitchen with a soda can in hand. So how'd it go? He asked. I might have caused a few existential meltdowns, she replied. He grinned. Sounds about right. Brody told me his political theory teacher almost cried when he found out about the Cold War. Diana laughed. And you? Okay, he said, cracking open the soda. Coach had us do warm-up sprints. I lapped the class 3 times before he even blew the second whistle. She groaned. You show off. Guilty. They sat in silence for a few seconds, the weight of their situation slowly sinking in. You realize, Diana said slowly, none of them have ever experienced anything like an earthquake, or a lightning storm, Tyler added, or even fire, probably, let alone war. They looked at each other. We're aliens to them, she said. No, Tyler replied, finishing his soda. We're legends. The gymnasium buzzed with low energy as students trickled in. Some floated, others hovered, and a few walked in with the kind of cautiousness that suggested they didn't want to be there. Physical education wasn't a popular subject. For many species at the academy, physical competition wasn't even part of their culture. Fitness was considered either ceremonial or irrelevant. But today's session had a different energy to it. Everyone was whispering about the human. Diana stood near the back of the gym, stretching her legs as quietly as possible. Her standard issue athletic uniform fit snugly, but comfortably, and the gravity simulator in the gym was adjusted to baseline for the rest of the student body, not for humans, which meant the air felt thinner, the ground lighter, and her movements effortless. Her first physical education class here, and she was already being sized up like a gladiator walking into the arena. The instructor, Coach Coker, was another alien. Older than most of the staff, with sharp antlers and an unusually muscular build for his species, he had a reputation for being strict. He prided himself on discipline and toughness traits rare in galactic academies, but still respected. "So you're the infamous Death Worlder," he said, stepping in front of her, arms crossed. Diana looked him straight in the eyes. "That's what they keep calling me." "In my gym," he said firmly, "everyone starts equal. You want to prove something, you earn it." She gave a small smile. "Sounds fair." He turned and addressed the class. "All right, we're starting simple. 1 lap around the gym track. No complaining. Move your bodies. Stretch your limbs. This isn't a negotiation, it's warm-up." The class collectively groaned. For most of them, 1 lap meant a slow 5-minute trudge around the circular anti-slip track. "Humans at the back," Coach Coker added, eyeing Diana. "Let's see what you've got." Diana blinked. "Just 1 lap? That a problem?" "No," she said, moving to the back of the group. "Just seems like a warm-up for the warm-up." A few students snickered nervously. They still weren't sure if she was joking. Coker raised a hand. "All right, on my signal. 3, 2, 1, go." The students began moving in their usual fashion, casual jogs, shuffling strides, the occasional float hopper coasting lazily along the outside lane. Then Diana moved, and in that moment, the gym changed. She sprinted, not just faster than the others, incomprehensibly faster. Her legs were a blur. Her steps pounded against the gym floor like controlled thunderclaps, yet somehow remained perfectly balanced and silent. Her entire body worked like a machine built for speed and precision. In less than 20 seconds, she had completed the entire circuit and came to a smooth stop near Coach Coker, who stared at her with his mouth slightly open. "Done," she said casually, barely out of breath. The rest of the students were still halfway around the track. Coker's expression tightened into disbelief. "How did you?" Diana shrugged. "Gravity here is like training wheels. It's not even Earth normal in this building. I could probably run twice as fast under my planet's gravity." He blinked. "You're serious. I'm holding back." She wasn't lying. Coker turned to the rest of the class. "Everyone else, finish your lap. Don't stop." When they were done finally, he called everyone to the center of the gym. "All right," he said, pointing at Diana. "What you just saw was a demonstration of Earth standard conditioning. I don't expect anyone else to match it, but I do expect effort." Just then, the gym doors swung open, and another human walked in, looking slightly out of breath. "Sorry I'm late," Tyler called out. "Took the wrong hallway." Again, Diana chuckled from across the gym. "Told you to stick with me." Coach Coker frowned. "Another human?" "Yep," Tyler said, adjusting his shirt. "Guess I'll just jump in." Diana raised an eyebrow. "We just ran a lap." "Only one?" She pointed at the other students, still catching their breath. "They're working on it." Tyler took one look and smirked. "That's slow, huh? Oh yeah." Coach Coker, who'd been listening from a few feet away, straightened his back. "You humans think this is a joke." Tyler raised his hands. "Didn't say that. Just surprised is all." "Well," the coach said, narrowing his eyes, "if you're so confident, why don't you two race?" Diana and Tyler exchanged glances. Then both grinned. "Race you," Tyler said. "Only if you think you can keep up," Diana replied. They took their marks at the edge of the track. The other students backed up instinctively, giving them room. Coach Coker blew the whistle. The two humans shot forward like missiles, blurs of motion. Blasts of wind followed in their wake. knocking over a couple of surprised onlookers. Within seconds, they were halfway around the gym. Then they passed the starting point. Then again, and again, and again. By the time the rest of the students had blinked twice, Diana and Tyler had already lapped the gym 10 times, laughing and pushing each other to go faster every time. Coker just stared, jaw tight. They finally stopped, sweat glistening but smiles wide. "You good?" Tyler asked, breathing steadily. "Could go again," Diana replied. Coach Coker looked like he'd seen a ghost. He cleared his throat. "All right, we move on. Push-ups. Standard bodyweight set." The class dropped into position. Most struggled to even get through a full set of 20. Diana and Tyler blew past 60 without blinking. Sit-ups, same result. Jump squats, not even a challenge. Every new exercise Coach Coker gave was met by the humans with ease and often turned into a competition between the two of them. No matter the task, they pushed each other harder, and the rest of the class could only stare. By the end of the session, the students were drenched, exhausted, and emotionally broken. The humans, however, looked like they were just getting started. Coach Coker dismissed the class, then sat on the bench by the court, shaking his head slowly. "Do I even want to know what a human military academy looks like?" he muttered under his breath. In the cafeteria later that day, Diana and Tyler loaded up their trays and sat with a few of the other human students from their class. Word had spread. Fast. "They're calling us the gravity demons," Brody said, scooping a spoonful of imported mashed potatoes into his mouth. "Heard it from a teacher." Diana laughed. "Seriously?" Tyler nodded. "I think Coach Coker is in denial. He kept looking at his clipboard like it was broken," Diana added. Jan leaned in. "Lunch lady tried to give me raw starch protein again. I asked for rice, got some kind of compressed algae block." "That's just insulting," Tyler said. The humans laughed. But underneath the jokes, there was a quiet understanding. They didn't belong here, not really. Not physically, not culturally. They were too strong, too fast, too much. And the rest of the galaxy had no idea how to handle that. Meanwhile, back in his office, Mr. Kahiro stared at the files Diana had provided. He'd barely scratched the surface. He still hadn't made it through Earth's natural disasters, and already he was questioning everything he thought he understood about sentient evolution. Volcanoes that shot magma into the sky. Tornadoes that ripped entire cities from the ground. Floods that swallowed entire regions. Earthquakes, droughts, wildfires. And yet, humanity endured. He looked at a chart detailing human chemical tolerances. Capsaicin consumed for flavor. Caffeine used daily. Alcohol recreational. Adrenaline harnessed during sports. He slumped back in his chair. "They shouldn't exist," he muttered. The headmaster walked in behind him, unnoticed until he spoke. "And yet they do." Kahiro startled. "Sir, I wasn't expecting you. I just came to check in," the headmaster said. "How's the lesson planning going?" Kahiro exhaled. "They consume poisons for fun. They challenge apex predators for companionship. Their world is more dangerous than any I've studied, and yet they've reached space faster than most species on record. They also figured out orbital weaponry before clean drinking water," the headmaster added with a grim smile. Kahiro groaned. "Please don't remind me." "Relax." The headmaster chuckled. "Your next class with the humans isn't until tomorrow. That gives you more time to digest." "I'm not sure my mind or stomach can handle it," Kahiro muttered. Mr. Kahiro sat in silence, staring at the screen in front of him like it had insulted his ancestors. His hands hovered uselessly over his tablet as the details of human physiology, diet, and psychology unfolded in a way that made absolutely no sense, at least not by any known galactic standard. It was almost comical. Almost, if it weren't terrifying. On screen was a list of substances deemed dangerous by over 90% of registered galactic species. Items flagged in bright red included capsaicin, caffeine, ethanol, and unbelievably dairy, all of which humans consumed regularly, voluntarily, some even daily. He scrolled to a section marked spice tolerance and blinked as he read the note. Capsaicin is consumed for recreational sensory stimulation. Humans rate spiciness using a system called the EAA Scoville scale. Foods exceeding 1 million Scoville heat units, SHU, are commercially available. He leaned back, eyes wide. To them, he muttered, chemical warfare is a seasoning. There was a knock at his door. It creaked open before he could even answer, and the headmaster stepped inside with his usual calm, unreadable expression. The only sign of fatigue was a slight darkening beneath his large, circular eyes. "You're still here," the headmaster said, half amused, half sympathetic. "I haven't left," Kaihiro replied. "I don't even know what time it is anymore." The headmaster sat in the chair opposite his desk and gave a half smile. "Let me guess. You got to the capsaicin part." "Got through it," Kaihiro said, rubbing his temples. "Just barely. Do you realize that a single dried pepper from Earth contains enough capsaicin to render an Alcar student unconscious for 20 minutes? I do. And they eat it on wings," Kaihiro said flatly. The headmaster nodded solemnly. "With sauce?" The silence between them lingered. Then Kaihiro spoke again, this time quieter. "They also consume caffeine," he said, "a stimulant that causes central nervous system collapse in most species. They drink it by the liter, daily." The headmaster looked vaguely uncomfortable. "I heard one of them referred to it as morning juice." "I read that same file," Kaihiro muttered. It wasn't a joke. There was a pause. "And then there's alcohol," he continued. "Ethanol is a literal toxin. In any other species, even trace amounts shut down major organs. But to humans, it's a celebration tool." The headmaster leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. "They call it partying." Kaihiro put his head in his hands. "They poison themselves for fun." "They poison themselves," the headmaster corrected. "And then dance." Kaihiro exhaled sharply. "We don't even have words for this." "No," the headmaster agreed, "because no other species has ever done it, or could do it. They eat sugar like it's nothing. They metabolize lactose. Some of them willingly consume fermented mold." "Mold, headmaster." "You mean cheese?" "Yes, cheese." The headmaster smiled faintly. "I tried it once. Didn't care for it. Because it's biologically repellent, and yet somehow it's a delicacy to them. They age it, they store it in caves." "Caves, headmaster." "You seem genuinely distressed." Kaihiro sat up and pointed at his screen. "This entire diet violates interstellar health protocol. These are not edible items. They're hazardous materials. And humans not only ingest them, they enjoy it. They thrive on it," the headmaster added. "That's the terrifying part." Elsewhere in the academy, Diana stood in the meal queue, scanning the menu with a sigh. It was mostly the same reconstituted starch packets, steamed vegetation that tasted vaguely like seaweed, and protein cubes shaped into geometric lumps. She missed actual food. Tyler walked up beside her and nodded toward the mystery blocks on display. "So," he said, "want to play another round of guess what this used to be?" She groaned. "Please, no. I still think yesterday's meat substitute was algae-flavored rubber." He smirked. "Still better than raw, sent starch. Brody says the staff eats it cold. That should be illegal." They grabbed trays and took a seat at the far end of the cafeteria, which had unintentionally become the humans' corner. Not by choice, but because most of the other students kept their distance. No one said it directly. But Diana knew. They were afraid. Not just of their strength or speed, but because the humans were different, in ways that were hard to explain, ways that challenged everything these students thought they knew about biology, civilization, and safety. Jen plopped down across from them with a face full of frustration. I asked for chili. They gave me some kind of mint soup. Tyler grinned. Classic. They asked if I was trying to kill myself, she added. Diana laughed. Well, to be fair, you probably are by their standards. Jen narrowed her eyes. I want a steak with pepper and mashed potatoes that don't taste like recycled laundry water. You ask for too much, Tyler said, mockingly dramatic. Another human Brody slid into the seat next to Jen. Coach Carker still thinks we're robots. After P yesterday, I saw him staring at the gym floor like it betrayed him. I ran 2 laps backwards today, Diana added. He looked like he was going to cry. They all chuckled, but beneath the humor, they felt it too, that growing gap between them and everyone else. The rest of the school lived in a bubble of safety, where storms were theoretical and war was ancient mythology, where the thought of eating something spicy was horrifying. And then came the humans, messy, chaotic, full of contradictions, and, apparently, built to survive everything the galaxy could throw at them. That evening, in Mr. Cahiro's office, the discussion continued. He had moved on from dietary anomalies to historical ones, and somehow, that was worse. They invented combustion engines before managing proper water purification, he said, scrolling through Earth's industrial timeline. They created weapons capable of vaporizing cities before unifying their governments. The headmaster sipped his imported tea quietly. They used the same chemical used in agriculture to kill each other during conflicts, Cahiro went on, and then banned it. Then, later, used it in modified form to enhance crops. Resourceful, the headmaster said. Unstable, Cahiro countered. They mapped their own genome within 2 centuries of discovering bacteria. After launching monkeys into space. Don't forget the dogs, the headmaster added. Cahiro just stared at him. Do you realize what this means? He asked. Their planet didn't shape them, it forged them. Fire, floods, ice, disease, famine, predators, poisons. Any one of those would stunt the development of most species, but humans adapted to all of it. The headmaster nodded. And now they're here, in our classrooms, with our students. Cahiro groaned and slumped over his desk. Just wait until they discover that we banned pepper for public safety. You mean pepper as in black pepper? Cahiro nodded. The headmaster winced. That might be awkward. The next morning, Diana returned to class early. She brought a sealed bag of snacks from the dorm's imported Earth pantry. Mr. Cahiro was already inside, setting up the hull board. She held out the bag. Want to try something fun? He looked at the label. Spicy nacho chips. He paled. This is a death sentence in a bag. She grinned. Only if you're not human. He declined politely. I'd rather not be the first interspecies casualty due to snack food. Diana opened the bag, popped one in her mouth, and sighed contentedly. Weird how something painful can taste so good. He stared at her. That's the difference, isn't it? He said suddenly. She tilted her head. What is? He leaned on the desk, looking thoughtful. Every species in the galaxy avoids pain, avoids risk. They're taught to seek comfort and harmony. But your people, you embrace pain. You refine it. You turn it into stories, into strength, into food. Diana chewed another chip. Sounds about right. That's what frightens them. She didn't argue, because he was right. Humans didn't survive because Earth was gentle. They survived because Earth wasn't. Back in the dorms, Athelia sat on the edge of her bed, arms resting on her knees, her long tail flicking against the floor. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She'd seen and heard enough in the last 24 hours to rewrite everything she thought she knew about biology, civilization, and power. Diana, the human girl, had completely shattered the curve. The way she moved, the way she spoke, calm, measured. But there was something behind her words, something ancient, like she was carrying the weight of a world behind her eyes and just hadn't bothered to say it out loud yet. And that run and pee, unreal. Diana hadn't just outrun the class, she had embarrassed it. And that was before Tyler showed up and the two of them turned the gym into their personal racetrack. But it wasn't fear that Athelia felt. No, she wasn't like the others. She was curious. Her species, the Pyrox, were predators, carnivores built for survival and aggression, descended from apex hunters. She was used to being the strongest in the room. She liked that role. It made people keep their distance, gave her space to think, to observe. But Diana didn't avoid her. Neither did Tyler. They met her gaze, didn't flinch, like they weren't impressed, and that bothered her more than she expected. What would it take to impress a human? Diana returned to the dorm late that afternoon. The sun, or at least this planet's equivalent of one, was already dipping behind the crystalline skyline. She stepped through the door and was immediately hit with the comforting weight of Earth normal gravity. The voice of the dorm's AI chimed softly. Gravity recalibrated to human standard settings. Her shoulders loosened almost automatically. It still felt strange to walk around campus, like she weighed nothing, then come back and feel normal again. She did a small hop, landing with a soft thump. "Yep," she muttered. From the kitchen, Tyler emerged with a fresh bag of chips and a soda can already half finished. "Hey," he said, mouth full. "You missed the drama." Diana dropped her bag on the couch and raised an eyebrow. "What now, Caleb?" "Jim." Apparently his dodgeball throw shattered a panel in the ceiling. Coach had to bench him for equipment safety violations. Diana laughed. "That's the second panel this week. He's getting a reputation. Already has one. They're calling him the Missile." She plopped down beside him. "Well, if we're naming people, I think you and I earned the Tornado Twins today." Tyler grinned. "I like that." They sat for a moment in comfortable silence. Then Tyler added, "Did you hear? 30 of us. That's how many humans they transferred here." Diana raised her head. "Seriously? I thought it was just our class." Apparently, the council didn't want to go through the bureaucratic mess of testing individual humans. So they just yanked full class groups from a few select schools. She sat back. "So we're not the only chaos agents on campus." "Nope, there are others. Scattered across different departments, and they don't know what's coming. Not a clue." The next day, Mr. Kahiro was in his office early, eyes sunken from another sleepless night of studying Earth's vast archive of history, ecology, and human development. The files Diana had shared with him were deeper and darker than anything he could have imagined. He hadn't even made it out of the natural disaster section before needing a break. Earth, by all accounts, was a planet trying to kill its own inhabitants. Between earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, volcanoes, and megastorms, it read less like a planetary profile and more like a punishment. And yet, the humans didn't just survive, they thrived. They built cities on fault lines, farmed land next to active volcanoes, and raised families in hurricane zones. And then there was the history. He skimmed through one of the files Diana had labeled Modern Conflicts. Where World War II, nuclear proliferation, biological warfare, civil unrest, genocide, mass surveillance. He closed the file quickly, shaking his head. No other species has done this, he muttered. They all had dark ages. That was expected. But humans, they went through theirs with fire. There was a soft knock at the door. "Come in," he said, already knowing who it would be. Diana stepped inside, this time with a tablet in hand and a calm, expectant look on her face. "Morning, Mr. K." He gestured to the chair. "You're early." "Yeah, figure we get a head start." He exhaled. "Diana, I just need to say it." She raised an eyebrow. "You're not wrong. Your planet, your history is horrifying. Your technology is reckless, and your biology defies everything we understand." Again, "Not wrong," he sighed. "How are you all still alive?" She gave a small smile. "Because we never learn how to quit." Later that afternoon, in another wing of the campus, a different group of students sat in the cafeteria, whispering among themselves. I heard they bench pressed the full weight rack. No, that was Tyler. Diana outran an air scooter during laps. That's not possible. Neither is being omnivorous, and yet here we are. The rumors about humans were no longer rumors. They were headlines. Everyone had heard something. Everyone had seen something. Whether it was in the gym, in class, or during meals, humans stood out. They were stronger, faster, louder, and completely unshaken by things that would terrify most species. And the scariest part? They liked it. The food they ate, the games they played, the stories they told, everything was more intense, more extreme, more dangerous. Athelia stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching as two humans, Tyler and Diana, walked toward the courtyard. They were laughing again, relaxed, unbothered. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. She didn't envy them, not exactly, but she needed to know more. What made them tick? What had made a species crawl out of the mud on a nightmare planet and make it to the stars when every part of their world told them to give up? They were just survivors. They were thrivers. And that made them dangerous, not because they had claws or venom or superior tech, but because they didn't stop. That evening, Diana sat cross-legged on the couch, tablet in hand, typing up an assignment about human environmental resilience. Her dorm room was quiet, too quiet, honestly. She missed the noise. Earth always had some hum in the background: city sounds, birds, dogs barking, life. Here, everything felt sterile, safe, controlled. Too controlled. Tyler emerged from his room and flopped beside her, still working, just wrapping it up. He looked at the screen. "You writing about Earth again? I mean, they did ask me to teach a lesson about it." He laughed. "You know they're terrified, right?" She didn't look up. "I know. And you know it's only going to get worse when the rest of our class starts showing up." She finally turned to him. "You think they'll treat us differently?" He paused. "They already do. And they should." She didn't answer. Instead, she stared at her screen, where she'd written a single sentence at the top of the page. "We are what Earth made us." She nodded to herself, saved the file, and leaned back. "They'll either learn from us," she said quietly, "or try to contain us." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "And if they can't," she gave a small, knowing smile, "then the galaxy's in for one hell of a wake-up call."